Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to see all of you today. I have really loud neighbors, so if it sounds like there's drumming, don't worry. And they never are loud until I start a webinar or an online meeting, and they're quiet the rest of the day. But I'm Kathrin Jones. I'm here in Moldova. I'm in the capital of Moldova, which is Chisinau, and today is our city day. We celebrate the birthday of our city today, 589 years, so that's a pretty big deal. How many of y'all are in Eastern Europe? Are any of you in Eastern Europe? Okay.
Therese is from Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
Evelyn, maybe we just tell everyone where we are from. I'm from Hamburg, Germany.
Okay, I would love to hear where everyone's from.
I'm Lydia, I'm from Spain.
I'm from Estonia.
Marina from Spain as well.
I am Jordi. I am also from Barcelona, from Spain.
Okay.
We cannot hear you.
And yeah, and she's
Therese.
Therese from Belgium. So
Okay.
something is wrong with the sound.
Okay.
You didn't pay your bill.
You never know when the microphones will work and when they won't, so we have to adapt. Well, I'm glad to see all of you here, and I'm so glad that Martina invited me along to share with y'all. And I just want to tell you a little bit about what's going on in Moldova, and I'd love, if you have questions along the way, please feel free to ask or write them down so there's not that weird like voiceover thing and that Zoom does. So like I said, I'm Kathrin Jones. I am here in Moldova, and I work with the Christian Alliance of Moldova Without Orphans, but in Romanian, it's Alianța Creștină Moldova Fără Orfani, and for short, we just call it ACMO. It's much easier. But before my husband and I moved here, I was a special education teacher for 15 years in America. And I chose the field because my brother has 2 children with Down syndrome. I have a niece and a nephew who are now 32. She just had a birthday, so I had to do the math. 32 and 26. And so that is how I changed my trajectory in life. I was studying social work and Spanish. My Spanish is no good because I don't use it anymore, so I will not try with native speakers at all. But I changed my trajectory, and I decided I wanted to know how people with disabilities were being integrated into society, because I didn't see that happening even in my hometown in America, and I wanted to know more. And I got kind of obsessed with it, and got my undergraduate degree, my master's, and then a postgraduate degree in special education studies. And then after about 15 years of teaching, I loved my job, and I loved my students, and I loved working with families to empower families to serve their children and to serve the community. And I worked with churches. But my husband and I felt called to the mission field in Moldova, and we were foster parents here for 10 years. And we had lots of young women who were aging out of institutions here in Moldova live with us, and we fostered them, and they are our children now. So we have a bunch of children and grandchildren in Moldova. And all during that time, I was like, God, I have such a heart for understanding accessibility in Moldova, and I'm not using that because I'm a full-time foster mom, and that was taking a lot of time. And then as our last young woman finished university, and we were kind of empty nesters, we say, a lot of opportunities started coming up to partner with Peace Corps and UNICEF, and even with our local Christian Alliance for Orphans. And God was so kind to me, and he just has given me so many opportunities to empower parents here, which I love. And in the last 3 years, he's allowed our little organization, our Christian Alliance for Orphans. It's just a bunch of organizations that work in child welfare, but it's all Christian organizations that work in child welfare. And so what we do is we just do a lot of training and partnering and empowering as best we can. And one thing that we've been doing lately is training all the foster families. Every single foster parent in Moldova has gone through TBRI training with our Christian Alliance for Orphans, which is trust-based relationship intervention. And as part of that, I get to do a whole session on understanding sensory processing and sensory integration, which I really love. But for the last 4 years, in partnering with local organizations, Christian and non-Christian organizations and the government and things like that, people would say, oh, Kathryn, we need this. Oh, Kathryn, we don't have this. Oh, Kathryn, we don't have this. And so I would just keep little notes in my phone like, oh, they say they need this. If I find access to that, I'll come back. Oh, they say they need this. And so I kept hearing people saying they wanted to know more strategies for helping people with disabilities be integrated into their communities, whether it was physical accessibility or social accessibility or emotional or even financial accessibility, just different topics like that. And so I was just like, God, it would be so great if we could just make a little very easy to use guidebook for people to have in Moldova. And I just had this idea in my head and I was like, I don't have the time to do that. I don't know about y'all. Like if you're wearing a bunch of different hats and doing refugee work and then doing this and doing that. And it's hard to make time to complete when you have these great ideas. And so I just would pray about it. God, I don't know how to do this, but I know it's a need. And so we heard someone tell about the response volunteers through the Peace Corps. And a response volunteer isn't someone who comes for 2 years. They just come for 6 to 9 months. And so every center I was going to was asking for assistance in occupational therapy. That's a hot topic. I don't know how it is in Central and Western Europe, but in Eastern Europe, occupational therapy is kind of in the developmental stages. And so I wrote a request to the Peace Corps for an occupational therapist to come and assist me with a needs assessment in Moldova. And I did not think it would happen. And I was terrified that they wouldn't be a believer and I would have to figure out how to like live out what we do without talking about Jesus every moment of the day. And so we heard last November that we got accepted, and we had this young woman come who had her doctorate in occupational therapy, and she had worked at 2 of the biggest hospitals in Washington, D.C., like an amazing resume. And she came, and I told her, you know, all of the things that I had hoped to accomplish. And then I was like, hey, I just need you to know that we are a Christian organization. It's in our name. And while we would never force you to believe what we believe, we are going to talk about our faith a lot. And she was like, oh, Kathryn, I'm a believer. It's like, I'm so excited to work with y'all. So that took a lot of the pressure off, and that was really exciting. But over the next 4 months, we spent time going to every possible private center, NGO center, day centers, therapy centers, government centers, and just sitting with them, like we didn't send out surveys unless we absolutely had to. We tried to go and sit with everyone and say, what are your needs? How can we help you better serve people with disabilities? What do you need? What do you need? And so we just sat and had really great conversations. And when possible, we tried to change some language, change some vocabulary that was being used in conversations. And throughout this process, we found that people just needed some basic information to be able to share with families and other community services. And so we created this very simple guidebook, which we have in English, and I will send it to Martina, and you guys are welcome to use it. It's just it's a few basics about some of the most commonly occurring disabilities. There's basics about lifting, about energy conservation, about there's some communication ideas in there, understanding sensory processing and behavior. It's only 100 pages, but it's a lot of information. And we tried to make it not too academic because we wanted it to be accessible as well for people in villages and people who had no previous contact with disability education. And so we worked really hard on it and have gotten to take it to the Ministry of Social Protection, to like non-Christian organizations and Christian organizations. And it's been a really great jumping off point for us, I would say, to get the idea of inclusion and acceptance, not just from the government, but in churches as well. That's always been my heart. I love to talk about the theology of disability. Like I love to sit and discuss that with people. And I never had thought about my own theology of disability until about 6 years ago. And I had to sit down myself and really, I had been in the disability world for, 20 something years, but had never just sat and tried to read through the scripture and understand, what my own theology of disability was and what I really believed in my heart about acceptance and inclusion. And so I have felt very empowered by that. And so I love to take that and sit with churches and organizations and just chat with them about how they can make their physical space or whatever more accessible. So that's a little bit about what I do. And Moldova, I'm sure you guys have seen this. We're on the track to become part of the EU, and there are a lot of things that we have to do before we can be accepted into the EU officially. And one of the things is the deinstitutionalization process. I'm sure you all may have heard of that in your own countries when that occurred, or in other countries. And here in Moldova, we've been really blessed because our little Christian Alliance for Moldova Without Orphans has got a pretty good success rate in partnering with the government as well. And so they continue to invite us in to their processes, like, hey, they have some people who know about this. They have some people who know about this. We want to invite them in. And so they continue to invite us to the table to be a part of their multidisciplinary teams, which is really important to us because we're not just taking some law, we're also taking God's understanding of a person's value and a person's worth to the table. And I think that's really important. But we have been a part, and we are a part of the deinstitutionalization process. And right now in Moldova, the majority of people who remain in institutions, whether they are children or adults, are people with disabilities. Most of our institutions are no longer called orphanages or boarding homes or anything. They're called placement centers. They're usually called temporary placement centers, which temporary to me would be a couple of months, but there are people who have lived their entire lives in these placement centers. But through being part of this deinstitutionalization process, we've really gotten to understand some of the nuances that I would not have thought about foster families not having homes that are accessible, toilets that are accessible. We love, I forget the word in English. What do you call the in-between rooms? A threshold. We love a threshold in Moldova, so there's never physical accessibility just from room to room. We have these big thresholds that are really big and thick in most homes and most buildings, and I trip all the time going from room to room. And so we have partnered with some organizations who are like really great, innovative, I would say, in making small rooms in between
Doorsteps.
Doorsteps. Okay. I was like, Prague.
Yes, in Romanian it's Prague.
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
Thank you, Don.
Anytime.
So just little things like that, that when we were talking about the deinstitutionalization process, everyone was thinking about the big, like we need to change the people's understanding of this and people's understanding of that. And yes, we need to change like basic understanding of disability and disability care, but we also need to change like small little functional aspects within buildings, public buildings and homes to make the environments more accessible. And a lot of families were nervous about taking individuals with disabilities because they felt like they couldn't access their homes. And so we've been able to go in and assist with that. So it's been a pleasure to me to, I don't like, I'm not good at the policy part and the diplomatic part. I like to sit with the actual people and do the thing. But our president of our organization, Alina Drutza, she's great at the policy part, and that's super important. Like we need that part in a big way, and we need to have a Christian voice in the policy. But I really like to sit down and, okay, like practically, what can we do for this family right this minute who has said they are going to agree to foster this child or to adopt this child? How can we help them be successful in that? And how can we help that kid transition in a way that is as minimal amount of trauma as possible? So that's a lot of what I do. And I love getting to work with families. Like that's my favorite thing. I get to do a lot of trainings for support staff in schools and social workers here and there. And I love that, but I would always rather work with a family and help them be successful and help them understand their kids' needs and help them see all the strengths that their child has, because I feel like we have become a very deficit-based society. We always want to say what someone cannot do. And while that information is important, that is not the most important when I'm first meeting you. And so I spend a lot of time talking about that, because usually when I walk into the room, people don't announce all the things I can't do. But I've noticed that in placement centers and in day centers where people with disabilities are served, that person comes into the room and the first thing that is spoken about that person is all the things they cannot do. And I don't like that one bit. And so that has been my little preaching platform, I guess. That's not maybe the right term, but I always remind everyone, like, is this how you are introduced when you enter into a new setting? Is this how you feel when you're in a new setting? Do you want everyone to know all the things that you cannot do? And so that's just my little, I would say, soapbox to stand on and share. But I have myself all these notes, and I just want to, Moldova's doing a lot of beautiful things right now, and I see a lot of changes happening. It might not be as fast as in Spain or Belgium or in Germany, but it's happening, and I'm really so pleased because we've lived here almost 12 years, and I've seen the changes and acceptance happen with my own eyes. Like in America, I don't feel like I was there to see the changes in acceptance. I didn't ever see a difference from people who were accepting or non-accepting to accepting and inclusive. But here in Moldova, I've seen it with my own eyes, because I see even on like public transportation, I see the difference in reactions to people with a variety of disabilities on public transportation. And it gives me such hope for the future. Like, are there still gaps? Yes, 100%. I think every country has gaps in this because we have our own things that we need to work through. But I see it in Moldova, and I see more and more people with disabilities in churches, in civic organizations, in the past where they were not a part of any of those things. And in the last 7 years especially, we've just seen such a growth in representation here, and I think that's really important. And even this year, when we were doing our deinstitutionalization, like roundtable discussions, I was waiting. I didn't want to be the foreigner voice coming in and saying, oh, we should do this, you know. I waited, and several Moldovans were like, you know, it would make sense for there to be a voice of someone with a lived experience of a disability at the table. And I was like, yes, like it felt like such a big jump for me, and I was so excited. So that's a little bit about me, and I could talk about all the beautiful things I see in Moldova and all the changes I'm seeing in disability ministry and disability care here. There are a lot of needs, but there's a lot of really beautiful things happening. And I think part of what I've done the last year with our OT Peace Corps volunteer was we did a lot of trainings about what occupational therapy is, because it's a very needed service that should be part of any multidisciplinary team or rehabilitation team or anything like that. OT is like, it's super important. And I have always been surrounded by amazing OTs. And so part of the process was doing a lot of OT trainings and explaining to people what OT is and how it's used and all the ways it's a part of society. And so a local organization, Tony Hawk Center, just finished this like almost 6-year project of doing small little courses that pertain to occupational therapy. Because in the past, we didn't have an OT degree here at any of the universities. It was a split degree of like kinetotherapy and occupational therapy. It wasn't wholly devoted to OT. And now they are moving to an OT program, and they're going to use part of our guidebook as their curriculum. So we're very excited about that. And it'll have a big Christian Alliance for Moldova Without Orphans on there. So we're very excited about that. But so we feel like this process with occupational therapy is going to bring more and more legitimacy to occupational therapy, but then there will be more and more service providers, because our kiddos and our adults with disabilities have not had access to good occupational therapy, which helps them access the world around them. Okay, thank you. I'm going to write that down. And occupational therapy will help us get more access to accessibility out there, because we did a whole training on adaptive equipment. And I love talking about adaptive equipment. And we were showing some of the different tools. And Moldovans are some of the most innovative people I know. Like, and so many of the people in our training were like, oh, like I've never seen that fancy, you know, adaptive device that you can buy for $400. But in my house, we have this made with this and this and this, and it serves the same purpose. And I was like, oh, Moldovans are so innovative. And so it was really great to sit and just listen to some of the ways they have created their own adaptive devices. And I'm like, hey, can you send me a picture? Because sometimes people don't have $400, but they can go to our local construction store and just get bits and pieces and do the same like low cost adaptive equipment. And so that's really exciting as well. I want to share about all the beautiful things that are going on. But I will stop because I want to hear from you guys, and I want to see if you have questions. But I just want to leave y'all with Moldova is making great strides, and we're like the poorest country in Europe, depending on where you get your data from. Some data says Albania sometimes. So, but according to some statistics, Moldova is the poorest country. So we've had less access to all of the things that Central and Western Europe have had over the last 20 years. But we are making great strides in inclusion and disability acceptance. And I just am so encouraged by that. And there are a lot of young moms, especially, who are out there just like beating the drum of inclusion and acceptance, and it not just being something that we say that we do, but that our hearts are actually inclusive as well. And I really love that holistic model. And they do a lot of work in doing counseling in families and mental health for moms of new children. And there's just a lot of beautiful things happening here, but I feel like it's a very grassroots effort. Like it's starting, you know, in these smaller organizations, and it's starting to grow. And I think that's one of the beautiful things, Lydia, you mentioned in your prayer, the internet, like access to information is really good. Now that doesn't mean all information is truthful, but having access to new information about how to help my person who I love be more independent at home is pretty important. And I think that's one beautiful thing that the internet has done for us. So I want to share the guidebook with you guys. I don't know if it will be helpful in your context or in your country or whatever, but there's even a little like a communication board. My topic of choice is accepting all styles of communication. And there's a communication board that is in our guidebook that is especially for hospitals, because a lot of times our non-speaking kids go to hospitals and no one explains to them in a visual way what is about to happen. And that is very stress inducing. I mean, a hospital gives me stress, but when we don't pair that with visual information, it's really terrifying. And so we tried to do a lot of things for public service providers that would have access to, like, here's some visuals necessary to say, you know, injection or this, or, you know, just basic vocabulary needed at a hospital or a clinic or whatever. So we're trying to get it translated into Russian right now. Romanian is our like national language here, but we have a lot of Russian speakers here, and especially with all of our Ukrainian refugees here, that's a common language. So most people are most Moldovans speak Russian as well. So we're trying to get it translated into Russian. That's a little bit harder. The Romanian, I can at least say, oh wait, that's not quite what we meant by that, or oh, that's this. The Russian, I don't have as good of a grasp on Russian. So that's what's going on in Moldova. And one of my daughters that lived with us for 8 years from the time she was 16 is a occupational therapist here in Moldova and has her own private clinic and is doing great work. And so it feels really beautiful to see the next generation working in such a way that is empowering and just seeing the beauty of God's creation in everyone. And I love that. So I could literally continue to talk, but I do want to see if you guys have questions or if you have advice or anything like that.
I already got the guide from Martina, and my question is, do you have it in Romanian?
I do. I can send it to you in Romanian. I just sent it to our subgroup that Martina and I are in. Is all English speakers. It's just me and one other person that speak Romanian or in Romanian cultures. Mm-hmm. So I would love to send that to you, Dan.
I speak Romanian too, so welcome to the club. My English is quite okay. I don't have a problem with English, but I would like to have it also in Romanian if possible.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. We're trying to get it in Russian as well, because like there's several centers that have asked for it in Russian, and I just haven't felt confident in what the finished product is. So
my Russian is really poor. Besides "Я тебя люблю," I don't know anything.
Yeah.
That is "I love you" in Russian, by the way.
Right.
For our English speakers.
Yeah. That was the first thing I learned in Russian as well. I think I know how to say I love you in more languages than anything. So
it's better than a swearing word. So it's okay.
Thank you, Kathryn. It was, I mean, I don't have a clue. We don't know anything about Moldova, so it's good to hear about Moldova. Now it makes us want to go and visit you.
You should. It's beautiful. The food is yummy. The people are wonderful.
But really, I mean, we don't, at least I don't know anything about Moldova, so it's good. It's very interesting to hear how things are going there, how what is working, and about your experience. And I liked a few things that that I noted. First, the team, that the different parts of the team have different purposes and gifts, and that you are more like to be with the families, but there's another person that is more like to be more like in politics, which is good. It's a good combination, and it's very important to have a voice as Christians also in politics, in policies, the way because if we're not there, others will do it. So it's better that we are there, but it's not always easy. It's a good thing that you have an opportunity to be there, and that's very important. And of course, giving a voice to people with disabilities also, but it's that's very important also. But everything, thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
So, I'm Marina. So I don't know if you can hear me well.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I love like that. I feel like you know a lot with working with families, and in our project, MEFI, it's our ministry in our church with people, adults with learning disabilities. And I would like to know if you have any advice, like a team to engage better with the families, because sometimes we just have the activity, but it's difficult because the families only bring the familiar to the activity, but in these moments, the corridor ministry, no, that you cannot talk a lot with them, how you can take care better or just be more present.
Yeah, that's a really great question, Marina. And I really, if I'm being honest, I feel like that's something that I've seen the secular organizations do better, because they focus so much on the entire family's psychological, spiritual, like the state of the whole family, because they realize that, you know, having parents who are able to make, you know, wise decisions for their child and who have really good expectations for their child, they see that as an important step. And I don't know that I can give you a great model of how to do that, except to like offer support groups. There's actually, I don't know, I know Martina was in this, the World Without Orphans Disability subgroup. Ikisa Ministry in Uganda has a beautiful course that's like a discipleship program for parents of people with disabilities. And it's a theology of disability kind of topic, but it's really, really quality. And what I love is it's not just teaching them something, it is discipling them and being present with them and seeing what their needs as a family are. And it's really beautiful. I can include that in here. I will sing the praises of Ikisa Ministries discipleship for parents. And I think that's a great place to start, because it's just like a small, safe group for families to talk openly and, you know, have concerns and have questions. And like, my son needs this. Do you know where we can access it? You know, just having those kind of opportunities. But again, the secular world does this better currently, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. Okay, thank you, Kathryn, for everything.
I wanted to mention, maybe you guys can help me with this. In our subgroup in World Without Orphans, we're trying to do a little bit of research. It's specifically towards Eastern Europe, but it would be great to have some input from you guys about churches and their perception and acceptance of individuals with disabilities. We're going to do a little survey, and it's going to be part of the World Without Orphans conference in March. So I might send it out to y'all just to get your ideas about it.
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I'm writing down some information from the chat over here. So.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you, Kathryn. I would be interested in how many what languages they are already. So you don't have it in Albanian at the moment, right?
I don't. I have it in English, but I would be more like, it's a PDF. Take it and translate it. If you have somebody that can translate it, like, we're not being protective of it. Like, it was just meant to help. Like, we're not selling them. We're just giving them away.
Okay, I have a lady. She's professional translator, English Albanian, but she's
Okay.
blind. She is blind, so I'm not sure if the book is accessible for her.
That's the next step.
Okay.
I can send the English PDF to a friend of mine who's also blind and see if he knows any tools that he can make it accessible for blind people. So we'll see. As far as I see here, it's quite accessible, but might not be very friendly with the columns that it has in it.
Mm-hmm. The columns are not.
So we'll see. You know, here in Eastern Europe, we have a saying, if not only in Romanian, we say, I know a guy that knows a guy that knows a guy that knows a guy.
That is, yes, there's always, oh, I know someone who knows someone. Yeah.
Yep.
So maybe that's the Eastern European way.
Yeah.
But PDFs can be read, no? There's tools to read PDFs, I think.
Yeah, they're all kinds of screen readers, but you need to understand the headings and all that, so it needs a little bit of accessibility.
There's the translating portion of it. It was really a group effort, because I took all of the people I know who work in this world, and then we all sat down and did it. And because sometimes, I'm sure y'all have witnessed this, like the word for word translation is completely different than the intended message. And so that was the most time consuming part, it felt like, was just trying to make sure that the actual message did not change. But yeah. A lot of the Romanian, though, I think, I find it really easy because it is a Latin language. Like, a lot of times I just have to put like an accent somewhere on a specific word, especially if it's like medical jargon or disability jargon. Like, you just pronounce it a little different, but it's like reading it, it looks the same. Well, I will make sure that, I'm trying to see if I have it on my laptop, and I'll just put it in the chat. If y'all give me one second, I'll find it.
Yeah, Therese talked saying that you should get in touch with count everyone in. They work with adults with learning disabilities in England. They are not here today, Peter and Christine, but they are usually in this group also, and they're doing. They have a lot of material also.
I think it would be very good to if the material is shared, so that not everybody have to invent themselves. Like every country, they can learn from each other. So maybe this be some good subject for a conference or something.
Yeah.
If it's free material, I mean, we have a place in our web where we share this kind of materials. I think maybe, I don't know, if everyone, if we all can, in any material we want to share, we can also put it there, because it's material that can help all our partners around Europe.
Would this be okay for you, Kathryn, or would you like it to have?
Yeah. I honestly, our Peace Corps volunteer who has her doctorate in occupational therapy, she did the lion's share of the work, and I just added the things that mattered most to me about visual communication, access, and understanding behavior and sensory processing. But I added that because that's what people ask me about the most, is concerns with behavior and understanding sensory processing. So I added a very short thing about that. But she, our Peace Corps volunteer, would love nothing more than for it to be shared with as many people as possible, because she's very passionate about that. I'm trying to, it's so easy to access on my phone, and I'm on a different computer, so I'm trying to find a way to put it in the chat here as well. I know Martina has it, but I want to try to go on and do that. There it is. In English. Not, I will send it to you in Romanian. Done.
Yeah, I think I'm now stopping recording because we have most information, and then we can have a chat afterwards.